tonight's session is going to be about the revolution of social media and how it has impacted on our faith, on our relationships with, well, not only with God, but also with his church, each and every one of us, and how social media nowadays have played such an important and huge role when it comes to this whole human dignity topic, right? So most of our references are actually from the church documents that I can share with you guys at any time if you just text me or whatsoever. So these are the table of contents that we're going to go through, 3 segments in total. I don't think today's session will be long, to be honest. So don't worry about that. I know Tuesday you guys had a very long session juga already. So yeah. So segment 1. Let's start with segment 1 first, yeah? Views on social media. Okay, I think before we start, maybe quickly share in the chat box, what is your most used social media at this current moment, right? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok?
I wonder if anyone answered LinkedIn.
Oh, that's actually interesting. So funny story, guys, a bit of a, I guess a bit of a stretch here while you guys answer, right? So actually, I've heard of a story before whereby kayak ketemu jodoh lewat LinkedIn. I guess that could work too, right? Especially
bukan ketemu kerjaan tapi ketemu jodoh ya.
Yeah, especially if you have similar interests, similar occupations, and in a similar industry, so can talk more, connect more. Instagram, WA does count. Oh, really? Okay. I see some private messages that are making me laugh. But yeah, so I think mostly di Indo itu banyak orang yang masih pakai Insta lah ya. Insta, WA, of course, it counts. Tapi we're talking more about the general public social media, which is why I guess Instagram is still very pervasive. And I guess everyone here will either have their own Instagram account or has stumbled upon Instagram before, right? So have you guys ever thought about it, with all of these advancements in social media platforms, right? How has the church, what are the church's views? Or more, to be more, maybe, to be a bit more extreme, how do you think God sees it? Right? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it somewhere in between? So funnily enough, during the Second Vatican Council, actually, there was a document that was published out of their total of 9 documents around there. One of them is called the Inter Mirifica, which is basically, what is it? It's basically a document addressing specifically to these communication advancements made in social media or the internet. Well, it's actually more addressed towards, online communication. And this is what Pope Francis actually mentioned, right? Along with the whole Vatican Council at that time. So they released this statement in paragraphs 2 and 3 of the document. The church recognizes that these media, if properly utilized, highlighted and underlined there, can be of great service to mankind, since they greatly contribute to man's entertainment, right, and instruction, as well as to the spread and support of the kingdom of God. The church recognizes too that men can employ these media contrary to the plan of the Creator and to their own loss. So we see a double-edged effect there, right? We see that the church recognizes and understands that there's a double effect. It can be either good or bad. The Catholic Church, since it was founded by Christ our Lord to bear salvation to all men, and thus is obliged to preach the gospel, considers it one of its duties to announce the good news of salvation, right? Preaching, sharing the good news, or kerygma is the Greek word we call it. Also with the help of the media of social communication, and to instruct men in their proper use. It's okay, right? As we can understand here, there's three main points. You can use it for good, You can use it for bad purposes. Well, you know what? As a Christian, we are responsible. As Catholics, we are obliged to preach the gospel even through social media. Right? So you see those three main points here that has been released by our church. So what about other more segmented views? What about when it comes to communication? So the church understands the missionary vocation that we all are supposed to have. You know, we all are called to share what your experiences are, because you really never know your story, how much it could impact, you know, another person, let's say, who's living then, I don't know, like hundreds, thousands of miles away, right? You know, and the fact that the internet or social networks have been such a great forum to connect people to from, you know, from Africa to America to Indonesia to Asia or so forth. You know, today's social networks are one way to experience this call to discover the beauty of faith, right? The beauty of encountering Christ. And in the area of communications too, we need a church capable of bringing warmth and of stirring hearts. So what does that mean? Well, in this case, understanding our missionary vocation to share our experiences, especially our experiences with Christ throughout the whole world, right? And the fact that sometimes when we post things on Instagram or whatsoever media that you use, we have to understand that, you know, it is more than just posting and click, that's it. It's not like right, post and then that's it. We have to know that there are a lot of people who can access it, who can read it. You know, if not your circle of friends, then it could be the general public if you're, you know, if you're not on private account, right? And your post, every single one of them can actually impact someone, right? There's always the responsibility and consequence that comes along with everything that we communicate online, right? And then which is why the church is encouraging us to understand that, and for us to be able to bring warmth, you know, to people as well through our social media communications. Which leads us to the next point there, culture of encounter. What does it mean? It demands that we be ready not only to give, but also to receive. That's interesting. Media can help us greatly in this, especially nowadays when the networks of human communication have made unprecedented advances. The internet in particular offers immense possibilities for encounter and solidarity. This is something truly good, a gift from God. So the church sees it this way, right? Social media is a gift from God. Internet is a gift from God. Because why? The humans who created it are gifts from God. Everything is a gift from God. But understanding we have the free will, we can choose what we want to do with the gift, right? So one thing that the church tries to encourage as well is, you know, a culture of encounter, especially nowadays in COVID times. I'm not in Jakarta. Most of you are in Jakarta. Some of you are elsewhere, let's say. But the fact that we can still do this and, you know, do it every week is something that's, you know, somewhat amazing. So, you know, the culture of encounter is something is actually that great potential when it comes to social media that a lot of people can still tap into, each and every one of us. All right, so point number 3 is Kerygma to the ends of the earth. Kerygma basically means sharing the good news or preaching the good news, right? Nobody's really telling you to, it's okay to, you know, how do I say this, right? Posting Bible quotes, let's say, on Instagram, because a lot of people do that, including myself. And, you know, it's definitely fine and it's definitely encouraged or whatsoever, but nobody's really, when we talk about Kerygma, we're not saying like just because that person doesn't post Bible quotes doesn't mean that that person's not doing Kerygma or that person's not sharing the good news. Right. I think in one of the later sessions, we'll touch upon what Kerygma really means. What does it mean to share God's good news? Okay. So, but yeah, coming back to this, by means of the internet, the Christian message can reach to the ends of the earth. And that is something that in Acts 1 verse 8 has already premeditated, you know, has already pre-mentioned before. The fact that we are called to preach the gospel, preach the good news to the ends of the earth. And now it's made very much possible with the internet. Right? So friendship is also one thing. Like I realized, especially during these times, funnily enough, I got to make new friends. Right? Or maybe some of you have like COVID girlfriend or COVID boyfriends. I don't know. Like there's that term going around, which is funny. I find it funny. But
Who
yeah,
used that term?
social media can be used to encourage respect, dialogue, and honest relationships. In other words, through genuine friendships. So now Pope Francis mentioned this beautiful quote. In a world like this, media can help us to feel closer to one another, especially right now, right? Creating a sense of the unity of the human family, which can in turn inspire solidarity and serious efforts to ensure a more dignified life for all. Good communication helps us to grow closer, to know one another better, and ultimately to grow in unity. The walls which divide us can be broken down only if we are prepared to listen and learn from one another. We need to resolve our differences through forms of dialogue which help us grow in understanding and mutual respect. Now think about it, right? When I read this quote, I was like, yeah, imagine yourself living, being alive, like during the BC days, let's say, or let's not go even that far. Let's go back to like those old dynasty days, let's say, right? And back then, the only means of communication were horses, messengers on horses or pigeons or whatsoever things that you guys can think about. But the point is that communication is so important. And if you actually, actually Pope Francis has released several books, if you guys can, have a chance to read upon it, how he talks about the communication is the key to, building genuine relationships with each other and understanding, resolving differences. People who live in Indonesia, how do we understand people who live all the way, let's say in, I don't know, like South America, right? Things like that. For us, we are the minorities in our country when it comes to, let's say, our religion, right? The Catholic religion. But in South America, Catholicism is the majority religion over there. And how do they view religion or the Catholic religion there? So it actually sheds a lot of understanding on the differences that we have as different people in this world. And it does become the bridge as well. Now, moving on to segment 2, challenges of social media, right? Finally, the challenges. What are the things that we have to face? It's broken down to 3 different parts. The first is information. And when it comes to information, you've heard of that statement, information is power, or something like that. I don't know if you guys have heard it before. I've heard it before. So in society, men have a right to information in accord with the circumstances. I guess everyone would like to know things, right? You would like to know what's going on. You want to unmute yourself, Hardy? Because like it seems like your mouth was opened to say something.
No, all good. Tadi I was doing something else.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so everyone knows that when it comes to information, a lot of people want to gather more intel pretty much. Nowadays, it's so easy to gather more intel when it comes to like other people, doing the whole background check thing. Don't tell me you guys don't stalk. I don't know who in this who in this world nowadays nggak pernah stalk before. Maybe ada kali ya, tapi I don't know. I feel like it's very few. We can research as well about career information.
It's called research, not stalking.
Sure. Yeah, doing your due diligence, they call it, right? So the proper exercise of this right demands that the news itself that is communicated should always be true and complete within the bounds of justice and charity. Right? In addition, it's the manner in which the news is communicated. It should be proper and decent. Full respect for the laws of morality, legitimate rights, and dignity of the individual. I guess that also includes, when you steal information, what is it called again? Plagiarism, and all those kind of stuffs. And then these are the things that are actually really interesting for me. It's actually mentioned there in the Inter Mirifica document. For not all knowledge is helpful, but it is charity that edifies. For not all knowledge is helpful, but it is charity that edifies. How many of you have ever like stumbled upon someone, or maybe you yourself has done it, which is completely normal, by the way. You know, when you treat your social media accounts or whatever accounts online as sort of like your trash can, you know, like you just put everything into there. You just like say whatever it is over there. And maybe you've chanced upon some people who do that, which again, like the freedom of speech is definitely something that's understandable, especially when it comes to the human dignity that we Catholics believe in. But one good statement there, you know, not all knowledge is helpful, but it is charity that edifies. You know, maybe we're talking more about quality than quantity, let's say, right? So another point there, the speed with which information is communicated exceeds our capacity as human beings to reflect, judge, you know, and this does not make for more balanced and proper forms of self-expression. The amount of big data that goes through our lives, our daily lives nowadays is crazy, all right? Back then in our parents' age, they probably, you know, let's say like dulu mereka kayak segini gitu, kayak the amount of information that they have to chew upon in a day or that they come across in during their days, right? And now for us, it's like twice or thrice. And then can you imagine for like future generations down the line, how much information, how much access they will have, right, to the vast amount of data or information. It's well, the fact is that one day it will exceed our capacity, because there will be days whereby our brain's not functioning that great, right? We're tired or we feel like burnt out. And, you know, it's during those days whereby our capacity to reflect and judge or even make decisions becomes quite challenging, right? So yeah, things to think about. So that's information. And of course, when it comes to information, we have to address this thing called false news or hoaxes, which the church actually talks about as well. So false information is based on non-existent or distorted data, okay? That is meant, so the intent is to deceive and manipulate the reader, right? To spread biased or baseless ideas. And these are things that the church does not agree with. Why? Because it is a sign of intolerant and hypersensitive attitudes. Basically, it's untruth. And we know that God is true, right? And we in John 8, verse 32, it's stated that the truth will set you free. Right? Truth is something that you can lean on, right? So when fake news, when you post fake news just to create more stress, more anxiety in society and so forth, that's not being a very responsible Christian now, isn't it? So, which is why maybe for each of us, especially in our WhatsApp group chats, maybe it's important for us to also get our fact checks correct, right? So think about that. And then in the next slide here, again on fake news or hoaxes, people who lie to themselves and listen to their own lie come to such a pass that they cannot distinguish the truth within them or around them, and so lose all respect for themselves and for others. And having no respect, they cease to love. And in order to occupy and distract themselves without love, they give way to passions and coarse pleasures, and sink to the bestiality in their vices, and so forth. So this is like quoted from the brothers. I think they're a saint. They're a saint, basically. So this is what they say when it comes to hoaxes. Basically, right? When it comes to hoaxes, just think about it this way. We remember the 10 commandments. Remember God's law of love, right? Remember, if you have nothing good to say, maybe there's no need to say anything at all. Right? That's a very general rule that we can keep in our minds. Right? When I say like nothing good to say, doesn't mean like we keep quiet and we're not allowed to speak our minds. It just means that, you know, if you know what you're saying is untrue, if you know what you're saying is not going to edify charity or compassion, then think about it again. Just really think about what you say, because words are something that comes out and you can't take it back. I wish you can. Trust me, I've had those moments where kayak blek keluar terus gue kayak pengen ambil balik gitu kayak satu persatu. But we all know that that's not possible. The beautiful thing, now here's the thing, right? The interesting thing, especially in WhatsApp, let's say, you can delete messages for everyone before they start reading it. How many of you have done that? Come on, right? But, well, you know what? Kelihatan anyways juga kalau lo delete for everyone, people can still see. So, yeah. Now, the next issue, relationship between rights. I think this is something that is quite technical. The variety of opinions being aired can be seen as helpful, but it also enables people to barricade themselves behind sources of information, which only confirm their own wishes and ideas, or political and economic interests. Now that's true, right? We've talked about it just now, how social media or the internet has allowed us different platforms to access, different platforms to voice out our opinions, but somehow the responsibility or the accountability nowadays, with the help of technology as well, actually, we can run away from that accountability as well. We can come up with a different name. We can post things and pretend to be someone else or things like that. So the desire for digital connectivity can have the effect of isolating us from our neighbors, from those closest to us. Now, for that point right there, how many of us have been so glued to our phones every single time we have dinners? With our friends, with our families, most importantly, right? And then how many of our families or friends have made that rule whereby, like, okay, all phones have to be put on the in the center of the table, and whoever reaches out for it first, like, has to pay for dinner or something like that. I don't know. Like, I think I've done that before. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, it's very hard. It's addictive, because the truth is that these digital platforms, they're addictive, and we're so addicted to our phones nowadays, right? And then it kind of it can actually impact our physical connectivity with the people who are actually there in front of us. So of course there's issues of cyberbullying and or defamation, right? There's a picture there, which is the Cyber Smile Foundation, that's in partnership with Scholas Occurrentes Foundation and also Pope Francis. So they've actually released a 24-hour live telecast before from the Vatican to stop cyberbullying. I think it's called Stop Cyberbullying Day. I'm not sure on which day it is, to be fair. But yeah, the church is definitely not pro cyberbullying. We are against cyberbullying or defamation, because in John 1 verses 3 to 15, if you read, especially in that one particular verse there, everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding on him. And of course, we have the 6 and 9 commandments whereby we cannot speak, we cannot kill, and kill even means like, verbally kill someone. We're not encouraged to do that, obviously, as Christians. And we have to have respect. We have to have respect for each and every one of us, because every human being is created in God's image and likeness, and therefore is valuable and worthy of respect. Right, so the third point is, I'm just going to go through this one very quickly, is a narration, description, or portrayal of moral evil. What does that mean? Well, yeah, so social media can indeed serve to bring about a deeper knowledge and study of humanity, whatever topics it is, right? Nowadays, you go to Google, you Google it up, and you find a lot of sources to, maybe things like abortion, contraception, but those are more church topics, I guess. Let's say like genetic engineering or so forth, right? Well, nevertheless, all of these presentations ought always to be subject to moral restraint, meaning that, they have to work more for the benefit of souls rather than for harm, which is why there is a question of always treating these matters, all of these matters that we see, all of these topics or themes that we can Google, especially for those of you who are journalists, I guess, they deserve very proper, reverent handling. So, okay, that's segment 2 finished, right? Now we move on to segment 3. Segment 3 is Christian responsibilities on social media. Right. I feel like we're gonna finish this class very soon. Because to be honest, this slide itu kayak nggak banyak.
Yay.
So basic accountability, 3.1, basic accountability. What is one of the most basic responsibility? I don't want to say Christian responsibility sebenarnya. I would say every human being's responsibility, to be fair, right? Like what we've mentioned just now. Whatever it is that you post, there is a domino effect, in fact, a more enlarged domino effect, because nowadays everyone can access it. And there's consequence. There's always consequence to every action that we take, including the ones that we do online. So we should not cause directly or indirectly spiritual harm to ourselves or others through hindering desirable presentations or promoting those that are evil. We ought to follow the moral code and judgments passed by authorities competent in these matters. So we have authorities nowadays. You can report posts, to the Instagram authorities and so forth. Those who make use of the media of communication, especially the young, should take steps to accustom themselves to moderation and self-control in their regard. I think this is more prevalent towards parents, or maybe for those of you who have a profession in teaching, especially the younger crowd, like the kids. Nowadays with internet, it's very easy for them to access a lot of enlightening information, right? So, but nowadays, of course, with the help of technology, we have those firewalls and those apps that you can use and utilize to protect them from accessing unwanted information, right? So there's that. But overall, the basic accountability of every Christian or every person is that, I always believe that we have to really think about what we want to say, not just in terms of the face-to-face, but also online. Because remember, everything that's online stays online, and you never know how many people have like screenshotted that thing or whatsoever it is, right? So it's always good to not post anything when you're emotional, right? It's always good to give yourself time first before you want to go on a rant, let's say. I mean, we all know how Donald Trump does it, and it's entertainment, I guess, every now and then when I read his tweets, but it can be very damaging, in fact, damaging towards himself, not just to others, right? So yeah, interesting example. Now, the next point, as a Christian, remember we talk about the culture of encounter, how especially nowadays, right? If you have friends who have been stuck in their home since March, let's say, and is afraid to go out because of COVID. Nowadays, there's Zoom, there's still Skype, there's Google Meets, there's whatever it is, or WhatsApp call even, very least. It's about encountering the person. Communication is ultimately a human-to-human encounter. Cor ad cor loquitur, which means a heart-to-heart, speaking from one heart to another heart, right? And remember that, communication is ultimately human rather than just a technological achievement. The digital world can be an environment rich in humanity. It's a network of people, not of wires, not of faceless, invisible beings. When you're talking to someone online, you're talking to a human being, right? You're connecting to their emotions, you're connecting to their feelings, their experiences, and all of these personal engagement is the basis of a trustworthy communication, right? And as a Christian, we are able to reach the peripheries of the human existence, like I said, wherever they are, no matter what time is it. You can reach out to that friend out there who needs you at that moment through all these online platforms. So how then can communication be at the service of an authentic culture of encounter? What does it mean for us as disciples of the Lord to encounter others in the light of the gospel? In spite of our own limitations and sinfulness, how do we draw truly close to one another? Those are the questions that I would like to invite you guys to think about after this session, actually, maybe in your own time. But this is a good example that's shared here in Luke 10, verse 29. If you read the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? Luke 10 verses 25 to 37. But in verse 29, these questions are summed up in what a scribe or communicator once asked Jesus. And who is my neighbor? When you look online, when you look right now in this Zoom call, let's say, right? Who is your neighbor? Well, this is why it helps us to understand that communication can be seen as a somewhat form of neighborliness. Neighborliness. How can we be neighborly in our use of the communications media and in the new environment created by the digital technology, right? And we look in this parable of the Good Samaritan, we understand that the Good Samaritan did not only draw nearer to the man he finds half dead on the street, on the side of the road, but he also took responsibility for him. He actually gave him clothes, he gave him drink, right, to eat, to drink. So Jesus is trying to teach us in this parable. He's trying to shift our understanding. It is not just about seeing the other as someone like myself, but of the ability to empathize as well, and we can empathize online to our neighbors. And our neighbors, sekarang kayak, it's not just people who are living in Indonesia, it can be people living outside of Indonesia. So this is the sort of like neighborliness that Christ has taught us, that the church is trying to teach us up until today, which also persists through our online communications. So how about Kerygma and social media? It is quite unbecoming for the church's children, ideally, to permit the message of salvation to be thwarted or impeded. Basically, what it means to say that if you see something wrong, right, or I hope it's not us who post something wrong, but if you see something wrong and you feel the need to defend it, the church is actually encouraging you to do so because, well, it's not, we're based on truth, right? Because God is truth, and the truth sets us free, like what the verse in John already mentioned before. And we need, as Christians, as Christ's children, we have the responsibility to also spread the good news and the truth news, if that makes sense, right? So the obligation we have to maintain and assist the Catholic media, whose principal objective is to spread and defend the truth and to foster Christian influence in human society, is there. Each and every one of us have that responsibility. And we can support all of these Catholic media, or even use our own accounts to repost whatsoever it is that can help, right? So effective Christian witness is not about bombarding people with religious messages. I love this. I love this statement because, like, to be honest, how many of us have, like, I feel like I bombard you guys with messages, but to be fair, you guys signed up for it. So if you want to unsubscribe, just let me know. But basically, right, for those of you who are into being online Christian witnesses, just remember, if there's something called effectiveness, and effective Christian witness is not about bombarding, blasting like several messages, or like, bugging the person every single day to attend catechism class, let's say. It's not about that. It's about the willingness to be available to others by patiently and respectfully engaging their questions and their doubts as they advance in their search for the truth and the meaning of human existence. And this is stated by Pope Benedict in World Communications Day in 2013. You see, we are challenged to be people of depth, right? We are challenged to be attentive to see what is happening around us, to not only be alert in a worldly sense, I guess, but also in a spiritual sense, which is why invoking the Holy Spirit is so important as well, right? To understand when someone is actually in spiritual need, to understand when someone's in a difficult spot or whatsoever it is. All of these, if you actually involve the Holy Spirit, can work tremendously. It can make tremendous wonders. And to dialogue, to have a dialogue means to understand and believe, like really genuinely believe that the other person really has something worthwhile to say. It's not just entertaining the person, like, oh yeah, go ahead, talk. And when the person's talking, you because your video is off, therefore you can just like go all around and like And then later on, when the person's done talking, you can just say, so what do you feel about that? Like those general psychiatric questions. It's not about that, remember, okay? So we should not also take advantage of these availability of these online platforms to communicate with one another. So we need to recall the story of the disciples on the way to Emmaus. That's in Luke 24. Basically, we have to be able to dialogue with the men and women of today to understand their expectations, doubts, and hopes, and to bring them the gospel of Jesus Christ himself. Because remember, back to our most basic teaching about faith is that faith is not about, faith entails sacred scripture, entails the church's teachings and doctrinal and so forth. But most importantly, it's about a person. It's about introducing the person of Jesus Christ into their lives, which takes a lot of creative and interesting ways, and in your own unique ways as well, because everyone is gifted with a special talent on how to share Christ with others. So, okay. Pope Francis in the 48th World Communications Day said that, let our communication be a balm which relieves pain and a fine wine which gladdens hearts. May the light we bring to others not be the result of cosmetics or special effects, but rather of our being loving and merciful neighbors to those wounded and left on the side of the road. Let us boldly become citizens of the digital world. That's very nice. Nice quote by our Pope. Now to sum it up, just like a bit of tips here, three tips to help us become better online Catholics, right? Number one, ask yourself, what do I hope to achieve every single time you're about to do something online? Not necessarily post, even just to browse, right? There's this one example that the article actually gave. Remember the rumor that the renowned physicist Stephen Hawking had accepted Christ after meeting Pope Francis? I don't know if you guys remember that rumor. I remember that rumor. And I remember that it spread like wildfire, in Catholic circles shortly after Hawking's death, actually, despite it being utterly false. So it's a hoax, right? So think, if we think about it, what is this person really trying to achieve by spreading this hoax, right? Are you trying to, and we understand there's that sort of like gap between science and faith and so forth, but the fact that, that's not real, there's no really added value to that message. It's just spreading lies about Stephen Hawking. And not only is it disrespectful to others, but we open ourselves to, very sorry to say, or very sad to say, ridicule. So why would anyone believe what we say about Christ when we show ourselves to be so ridiculous or gullible? Understand that, because there has to be a value to our message, right? So the second point there, critique the idea, not the person. Remember that everyone you talk to on social media is a child of God, not a stereotype or an argument to be defeated. Sometimes, like what we said just now, when we talk about, let's say, when you banter online on Facebook or Instagram DMs and so forth, because that happens a lot, or YouTube comments, never write something that you would not say to another person's face. Keep any debate focused on the arguments presented and avoid personal attacks, because it's just insensitive, I guess, in a way, when you're talking about this certain theme, but all of a sudden you decide to turn it into a personal attack. And that is just showing how un-Christ-like we can be, right? So there's that. And then number 3, aim to connect, not to defeat. I think this is very important. Like what Pope Francis always says, we're here to build bridges. We're not here to burn them even more, so forth. Build bridges, not walls. More listening than speaking, especially when it comes to being more opinionated. There's a time and place for everything. And in James 1, verses 19 to 20, let every man be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not work the righteousness of God. Remember that. I like that verse. I used to write that verse and paste it in my mirror so that every single morning I wake up and I see that. But yeah, So these are the tips that can hopefully help us to become better online Catholics or online citizens of the global world. Well, this sharing or activity time is something that you guys, that I thought about just, sharing before we close today's session. And then after that, Q&A as usual. So actually, Marcella shared it before when we were talking about why is doing good deeds not enough, right? And I forgot the exact words that she put on her slide, but it was something about like, when you start comparing, that is the start of unhappiness. And Theodore Roosevelt has already stated that way before, comparison is the thief of joy. So we've addressed so many of the more, I don't want to say shallow, but more of like, surface level kind of thinking about social media and its impacts on human dignity. But for now, I want to try to invite all of you to dig deeper, right? Especially when it comes to this quote, comparison is the thief of joy. Think about this, right? Find one profile on Instagram, because just now everyone said that most of you guys use IG still for social media. Just find that one profile of a person or whatever it is. I don't want to say animals. I'm like, okay, don't choose corgis or animals, because that's just gonna defeat the purpose of this activity.
Corgi Mayu.
Yeah, corgi maybe gua. But just think about it, like one profile of a person that you have been secretly always looking, he or she's always there and you're recently viewed, let's say Elon Musk or whatever it is, right? And just be honest with yourself. I'm not asking you to share. I'm asking you guys to do it like right now on your own, right? Open it up, look at the profile, take some time to think and look through their posts. Now, really reflect on their posts, on their lives through the social media lens, and ask yourself, or even just go to your home right now, your home on IG, and see all those images that are posted. Do you think that all of those are, do you think that all of those things reflect what real life really is like? How many of us have had those moments whereby we are a bit addicted or really addicted to social media and sees it as a form of getaway? Maybe because we have had a shitty day and we feel like, you know what, I want to open social media and be at some better place. Or like, and then you open and you see this person and you feel like, wow, this person really had such a great, this person looks like, has such a great life, right? How many of us have been in that situation before? I think that it's not uncommon at all, especially with the increased connectivity and increased accessibility that we all have to the different profiles, right, of random people in this world. So where are we going with this? Do you really think it's real? Do you really think that I'm gonna give like some time for you guys to soak, sorry. Just like to think about it, because I'm gonna soak as well on it as well, right? I'm gonna open mine. I remember a time when I was really addicted to Instagram. I can spend like hours on IG, like maybe even like minimal of 3 per day.
Sekarang udah enggak.
Sekarang udah enggak. I actually went on a break. I deactivated my Instagram account for 3 months that time, I remember. Yeah, you did. I did, right? Remember, Hardy?
Yeah, I remember.
I wanted to break that addiction. Right. So I hope everyone's done some sort of that, right? So, and then I'm gonna share these photos. Hold on. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Oh, sorry. Can everyone see these photos?
You put that photo.
Yeah. Right. that was us in the most recent session. You can see like Feli's face as well there, and Saskia with her invincible fan. Ada tuh, ya, ke itu ya. Nah, that was us, remember, in Noble Thai. This is Feli and Tosin. If you remember, Feli and Tosin sharing about their love life. That's a picture that I took of them secretly. I find it very cute. That was with the previous batch of RCIA. You see, oh, that's my dog. Very randomly putting its head on my pillow because Molly's just like that, dominating the whole bed. But basically what I'm trying to share here is that life goes beyond lenses, right? Especially beyond the social media lens. Life is so much deeper than what we can visibly see. Most of the things in life, in fact, the most precious and unexpected gifts of life are often the uncaptured ones. Not just candid, we're not talking about hashtag candid, okay? We're not talking about that. We're literally talking about those uncaptured moments. Think about it, like, you know, those moments whereby maybe you shared such a loving moment with your parents. It's not like you can take a camera and, you know, take a selfie or Wi-Fi and be like, post some, you know, insert quote here or insert a caption here. Those are not the moments that we would probably remember when our lives are closer to the end, right? So never look to social media to define life. Look at your own, look at your experiences, especially during these times of COVID, whereby it gives you immense time to reflect on your days, and look within. Define life in your own way and with God's infinite graces. That's something that I would like to share with all of you tonight before we end today's session. And I hope that you guys never forget that.